All right, top 5 events that we've covered in the 2 years. This was suggested by Jack McKenzie, who's now on Twitter.
Yeah,
Jack at JackMac98 on Twitter.
MACK 1988.
Yeah. All right. So suggested by Jack. So number 5, Kim Mulkey's exit to LSU. This is a big one, obviously, for us. Smokey and I, in particular, have covered her, and the lion's share of her time at Baylor, and this was as much as she wants to put it cut and dry exit of just a different thing, was not. So one of those things that I'll always think about that happened, especially in our first year or so here, was this circus that she created.
Yeah, I mean, I still don't know that we really know what all exactly happened, at least publicly available. That was pretty shocking. And then again, if you were kind of reading the tea leaves, not totally surprising when there was an issue that arose. And, that whole radio interview she did that kind of sparked the whole thing. I mean, that was on her end, and that's what opened the gates up. I have nothing but respect for Kim Mulkey. I think she's a fantastic coach. I think she's a great basketball mind, and I didn't have many, brushes with her, but what I did, she was, mutually respectful, and I appreciate her. Y'all dealt with her a lot more than I ever did. I got nothing really bad to say at all. My only thing on this, and maybe it came across like I don't like her or something, but it was never that, is I just wasn't going to sit and wallow and be depressed about it and act like nobody can come in and coach basketball because one person left. I already did that with the Art Briles thing and people crying about that and saying, oh, the program's dead and all this, and now 2 coaches have come in and played for Big 12 titles, and one of them just won it. So, anybody can be replaced. But that was where I was coming from with the whole thing, was I'm just not going to sit and just cry about it. Like, she left, she decided to leave, and she moved on, and so be it. So good for her, and she's coach of the year at LSU, and they've got great things going on.
The only part that bothered me was the fact that because I had the conversation, was what became the narrative of what was told to me that same week, which was a completely different situation. But it's her career. Baylor's moved on. Nikki Collin had a hell of a run, and so did Kim at LSU. Not a surprise.
Yeah. Number 4, the sports world during lockdown. I mean, that was our first few months there. And, Jack, we chose Rudy Gobert for the logo here because that was the thing that kind of kicked it all off. And, the first... let's see, we were in, late June, early July before we were actually watching actual sports on television up in my...
We launched this show 2 years ago today, and COVID had taken over a grip of everything.
Yeah, and so we
launched it in the darkness of night.
Here's my timeline. Was in Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament the night that Rudy Gobert touched all those microphones and joked about having COVID only to test positive, and basically started the entire crisis of COVID in America. I mean, really, that was like the first, big, whoa, it's here now. And then, 2 days later got fired because there was a pandemic, which had just started 2 days earlier, which is weird how quickly it had an effect on business. It's amazing. But in all seriousness, that was BS. And what to follow was not BS. I mean, just the whole lockdown and everything that we had to go through and still to some extent are going through and all of that. But yeah, it's changed the entire world, and it certainly changed sports there for a while. And I'm glad we're back to some sense of normalcy.
Yeah, the first couple months though, trying to do, and people would ask me what are you guys going to talk about? I said, we'll figure something out, and we got a lot of guests.
The goal was, and I did this back in 1990 when starting the show in Tyler, is that you may not have anybody watching or listening to you, and You get word spread about what you're doing by having great guests, including the ones we've had today. We had over and over and over again different names. And I remember I had that blackboard, with all and then next thing you know, everything started coming back. And the reason why you have your top 5 that allowed us to gain viewers and also listeners along the way.
Yeah, I want to make it very clear. I'm not there. The other day you were trying to see if I wanted to add on to talking about where we were, and I'm moved so past that. But I'm never going to accept that we were fired or I was fired. It's COVID cuts 2 days after COVID became a thing. It's really 2 days after, and all of a sudden the bills can't be paid, and you have to spare me, dude. So BS. But anyways,
yeah. No, we were fired for health reasons. He was sick of us.
Yeah,
exactly. That side told us to live on Spike.
And it was mutual too.
We were all sick of each other. Number 3, the Baylor's Big 12 and Sugar Bowl wins. Just this last December and January. Really, I mean, something that, look, when we started the show April 6th of 2020, we were not talking about Baylor winning the Big 12 title. We didn't know what was going to happen because of Dave Aranda and COVID and how everything was going to happen. And then, if you had done this, our last year one anniversary show, I wouldn't say we were sitting here talking about a conference title after that season. We were talking about, hey, well, this is probably a bowl team now that everything's normal, not a big time, New Year's Six bowl win and a conference champion.
Well, it needed to be a bowl team after 2-7. If it would have been anything, they didn't have to go win the Big 12 and Sugar Bowl. I mean, that was just extra frosting. But I mean, they definitely needed to have a turnaround. And the turnaround was incredible. We talked it to death, and we'll continue to, because those were two big wins in that program's history, two of the biggest ever, and one of the biggest years. It has to be the best year ever, right?
It's the best single season Baylor football's ever had.
Best season they've ever had. Yep. So, to think of how do they fix this, and is Dave Aranda the guy, and is his personality going to work, and all that to where they are now? It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Number 2, Baylor men's basketball's 2021 national title. I mean, you would think this would be number 1, but there's a different number 1. But this, look, our company's made a documentary about it. It's huge.
We were there.
We were there. I mean, it was just so much
unbelievable.
That goes into this with Scott Drew and where he built the program from, and the way that not only that the whole national conversation about Scott Drew, which should have changed about 10 years ago, it's like everybody else caught up and go, oh, crap, this guy, this guy knows basketball.
It really has changed, and it carried over, and there was none of this going back to the previous narrative. Mm-hmm. It has changed in the way he's looked at now and forever.
Yeah.
Because of what happened in 21.
Yeah. And number 1.
Oh, yeah.
The Big 12 shakeup. I mean, this is why there's 17,000 of you nearly subscribed to our channel, and that we're talking to people from Mexico and West Virginia and Orlando and Washington and Oregon and California, Oklahoma, all that, Virginia, all those places we got to meet people and talk to them on the show was because of the Big 12 shakeup. Obviously, the biggest thing, and may not be done shaking up, but this is the thing that kind of is maybe now our signature moment as a show.
I can't argue with any of the 5. The order, of course, can always be what, but as far as this show and the growth of this show, that one there is the one that took our YouTube channel to a level that it's at now, and it continues to grow. That was, because that could have been devastating, and instead it turned out to be freaking amazing.
Yeah, we're going to make some new friends from 4 different schools now as a result, or have in some cases. And that was easily the biggest. Will stick with me for a long time, just the feeling of seeing that news break, especially after we had just been at Big 12 Media Days, and everybody was just like, that's where I would never be successful at this high-end level of businesses, because I can't hide much, so I just don't know how Chris Del Conte and Joe Castiglione were just walking around for 2 days, the whole time knowing what they were about to pull in the next few days, and then Brent Zwerneman beat him to it. But, that's why they're in those positions. You have to be able to keep secrets and do things behind the scenes, and they put their programs in good positions and left the Big 12 in a lurch. But to Bob Bowlesby's credit, and to the remaining schools, they were able to dig themselves out of that as much as they could, and they're going to have to keep climbing. There's no doubt. They're not like in safe zone territory and just going to be fine for forever. As if this conference shows you anything, in 5 years we're going to be doing this again, if not sooner. So easily the biggest story we talked about.
Gregory Krug, before you mentioned that, and I said, I got a feeling I know which one it is, and I said, Greg, you were right. He goes, I'm going to tell my wife that I was right at something.
There you go.
And I said, take this message here and copy it and send it to her or show it to her. All right, Paul, good stuff. I can't argue with any of those without any question whatsoever. Levi